Welcome to Connecting Business. I'm your host, Christina Munoz. While America is full of influential women today, hundreds came before them paving the way. March is Women's History Month, and it serves as a way to not only remember them, but to empower women to carry that torch onward. Today, we'll explore this and more with our guest, Jennifer Lindsey, as we talk about the art of selling and the importance of professional development. Thank you for joining us. And now let's get started connecting business. I want to introduce you to Jennifer Lindsey, Director of Sales for Kinetic Business in Kentucky. Jennifer, thank you for joining us and welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. We're so excited to have you, and we're going to learn a lot about you today. But just so that everybody knows, give us your background. Tell us a little bit about where you came from and how you got to where you are.
Absolutely. So, born and raised a Kentuckian. I always thought I would leave, but stayed in Kentucky. When I enrolled in my first semester of college at the University of Louisville, I was an English major. I thought I wanted to teach high school English and inspire a generation of readers and lovers of literature. And it was probably a semester into school that I realized there's a whole lot of teaching that is beyond the inspiration. And I did not know that that was the right place for me. So I made the switch to business school. I thought business seems like that an aptitude in business could parlay into a variety of careers. And so that's what I did, business management. And after college, I kind of fell into some sales positions. I sold a variety of things. I was one of the first sellers to sell online advertising when the newspaper started to undergo its transition. And then I moved into this world where many women find themselves of starting a family and being somewhat torn between career and family. After my first two daughters were born, I thought, okay, it's time to shift to something differently. And I wanted to do something part-time. And at the time, I had a friend who was an area director for mobility. So think back to the days when the Razor cell phone was the coolest thing.
I remember it well.
I started in that world of mobility technology. And it was a good part-time role for that season of life. And it actually afforded me an opportunity to go full-time out of that back into what I knew well, which was B2B sales. I was still working in this telecom technology world, and I really had the opportunity to learn and do some nano degrees and micro certification in technology that became a game changer for me. I got to learn more about my talents and my aptitude for technology. And through various selling roles and B2B roles, I ended up taking on leadership positions and leading multiple teams. And here I am today.
Wow, very cool. And I love hearing your background and your stories and how we almost fall into things sometimes. It's not always intentional. I was just speaking to a college student who's graduating and was so upset because she didn't know what she was going to do. And I said, life experience will dictate where you end up more than making a decision and a plan. So good for you. You kind of rolled with it. And then you got the mom thing in the mix. So you do have 4 kids now. Is that right?
That is right. 4 kids, so 2
Wow.
full-time jobs, but they make me better, right? They make me better.
Absolutely. I bet they're both more than full-time jobs, but yes, very, very busy woman. So I'm curious to know about you and people that you looked up to along the way. You're a very successful businesswoman. Who kind of paved the path for you when it comes to mentors in your life?
Oh, that's a great question. You know, we talk about my daughters, and my hope is that one day they fondly think of me as a mentor. But I would have to shout out my own mom. Strong women raise strong women. So I think first and foremost, she paved a way for me just to help find my voice and my strength and my confidence to go. From a work perspective, I was blessed with 2 really great mentors in my career, and kind of polar opposites in their approach. The first, he to this day, he led me on one of the early teams that I was on, B2B selling. And to this day, he will still reach out to me probably once, twice a year. But he was really focused on making sure that not only were you a good steward of your work, that you were also a good steward of your time spent with your family. And he really focused on balance. And for those of us that have a penchant to work really hard, it was a good reminder that you have been stewarded, two blessings in your life, be able to balance both. The other, I worked for a woman in my career, and she was tough as nails. I mean, just tough and focused. She told us this story once about her childhood, and her father was a commander in the Army. And she said she and her younger brother, they went to the top of the mountain, hiked it together with her father. When they got to the top, the father said, "Okay, I've shown you the path. Now work your way down," and left them. Now, to be fair, he didn't leave them. He was watching from a distance. But there's a lesson to be learned in that. Let me teach you to fish so that you can fish for yourself. And then let me give you the accountability and toughness to keep challenging you and push you forward. It's the weaving of those two, right, that I think really makes an impact on the people we get to lead.
How cool, because those two concepts, one is kind of letting go, teaching and letting go. And the other is that balance of family. Because when you hear 4 kids, I have 2 kids and I know how hard it can be sometimes. So I'm very, very impressed and inspired by that and achieving that balance, which some days I always say we're better employees and some days we're better moms. It's just the way it goes. But when it comes to selling, so you know what people think about salespeople. They think of car salesmen. They think selling is a bad word. So you are now the director of sales. You're leading this team. What is your approach to selling?
Yeah, so people definitely have a perception of salespeople, and movies have done us no favors, right?
Oh, so you're so right.
That always be closing approach, make sure you're always selling. It puts us in this position of only looking out for self, right? I think salespeople get this perception of what's in it for me. And really, we have the opportunity to flip that on its head. I approach with my team when we are with the client and we are working to sell. Our goal is to truly be a consultant and an advisor. We want to be in an advisory position. Well, to do that, you've got to follow some humble advice. So I think Alexander Hamilton in the musical gave some
love that, by the way.
Got some great advice from his nemesis, Aaron Burr, which is talk less, smile more.
Absolutely.
And that is sales 101. If you're talking, if you're continuing to talk and sell, you don't have the chance to listen. And our position in the room with the client is to listen. And to make the listening effective, we have to be curious. We need to really ask great questions. In what we do, we sell technology. And it's often perceived that when you are selling technology, you should talk to the IT director or to the technical stakeholder. And there's truth to that. We need to understand the technical components, but we also need to understand the business, right? Who is that business? What are they doing? How are they serving their clients? How are they connecting with each other? How are they problem solving? What has the pandemic done to the way they collaborate? Ask the questions to truly understand who that client is at their core and how you can help. I think the other thing that we fall into a trap as salespeople, especially those of us that have been in any industry for any length of time, is we think we've heard the story before, right? So we've asked the question, you've started the answer, and we think we know where you're going. And we take point A and we go to point C and we don't listen to the journey in between. And if I'm going to be your trusted partner, if I'm going to be the consultant you go to, I need to understand that journey of how you got from A to C and then solution.
Very good advice. And I love that actually listening, but the genuine part. And sometimes that's hard to teach. Sometimes that's a personality thing to genuinely care about what that other person is saying and talk less, smile more. If you're not careful, we're going to break into song and dance here because we're big fans of Hamilton. But it really is such great advice. Don't just go in there and ramble away at something and then they're tuning out and they're saying salesperson and you've lost it at that point. So
absolutely.
Yeah,
if someone has taken time out of their calendar and their schedule to meet with you, they have a need for something. It's your turn to show up and understand what it is.
That really simplifies it and kind of takes some of that pressure off. So genuine listening. I love that so much. So let's talk about professional development. Sometimes we just get this from being in our industry, and sometimes we have to be very intentional about development of ourselves, our personalities, personally and professionally. So what's some of the best professional development that you've ever gotten, and how did that make you feel about your employer?
Absolutely. So I have been incredibly lucky to be in positions with employers that made an investment to ongoing professional development, right? So not just your onboarding training, but that ongoing growth. In technology, our world is changing so fast. There's always something to learn. I was really benefited from a sales perspective to sit through some coursework around the art of consultative selling. I got to do that early in my career. I got to do that before maybe I picked up some terrible habits and really learned what it looked like to consult with a client, to ask questions, to focus on the long-term wins and not just the short-term gains. And that made a difference in how I designed my workflow, etc. The other interesting components are you get this great training, you're using it every day in the field, but having a say in what ongoing training looks like, right? So if I recognized a deficiency in one of my skill sets, being able to go to my training department and raise my hand and it being okay to say, I need help in this space. It could have been project management or calendar management, or it could have been things like technology, gaps in what I didn't understand in the marketplace. But having a say in that development and knowing that you had the resources and availability and that it was okay.
That is so great to hear and to really feel comfortable. So it's really about that environment, to feel comfortable saying, I'm not great at this, so help me out. And I love how you mentioned not just onboarding. We've all probably had jobs where here's your onboarding and that training and then nothing else.
Go.
And you're just left hanging, like go swim. Okay. So for you personally, how do you pour into your team when it comes to development? I mean, what kind of things do you do that can maybe help others with their teams of those that are watching?
Yes, there are some things that are universal, right? If we are launching a new product in our portfolio, it is universal that everyone on my team is going to need to learn about that. Some things are new to the market, let's do training. There is intense value in knowing your employee. And so as a leader, I think sometimes we have the disadvantage of we look at our high performers as high performing, and we may spend less time with them coaching and developing them. And then the flip side of that pendulum is maybe we see an employee that is struggling or not where we expect them to be from a performance. So we get really focused on coaching and it doesn't feel for a benefit, it feels more as a negative. And I make sure that every single member of my team gets dedicated coaching on a weekly basis. You may be the highest performer, you may be in the middle, you may be new and really starting to learn and grow, but they all get dedicated time with me because it is really important to invest that time with your employees. It gives you the opportunity to recognize their skill sets. Some things aren't captured in a key performance indicator, and if you haven't spent time with someone, you don't get the chance to recognize that value. And then it gives you the chance to nurture them. So if you're going to be in tune with what that employee needs, that employee may need the reminder to balance their work and career. That employee may need the tough love to say, it's time to step out of your comfort zone. But you don't know that if you haven't spent the time. So I think priority of dedicated, focused time with your team, it has to be on the list of things that gets done in a week.
That word investing, to really invest into each one. I love how everybody's needs are different. We were actually talking a little bit ago about personalities, and we both know this Enneagram thing, and I'm a 3, you're an 8. So when it comes to those different personalities, because some people will say sales need a certain personality, some people would disagree. How do you kind of teach and educate those that are a different personality from you? So as far away as from an 8 as they can get, but they can still be very successful in sales.
So I'm lucky that I have personal experience with my husband, who is as far away from an 8 personality as you can get, right?
Opposites attract.
So you get some background study time. The truth is, I don't think that there is a persona of a salesperson. And I am probably going to be very controversial for saying that. Some of our salespeople are going to be money driven, money motivated. That is not a bad thing. We have others who really want to solution, understand, do right by the client, and that soft win is what motivates them. We have others that are really great at the analyzing the data and being able to then solution from it. Finding the strength in what comes natural to someone is just the starting point, right? All of us have blind spots, and so we all have spaces to grow, but finding the strength and then building from there puts everybody in a position to win.
Very well said. And so I have to ask, we all hope that this pandemic, this global pandemic that we're under, is slowly coming to an end, coming to a close. Nobody really knows what that looks like. But how has it changed for you? And what have you trained your team to do during this crazy time of a global pandemic?
Yeah, so look, nobody expected a pandemic. Maybe we should have, but here we are. And we have been adapting over the course of the last year. I am thankful to be in a technology field that was on the forefront of tools that made virtual collaboration possible, because we were able to do this. We do a lot of video meetings, and I have children at home, so I've seen the TikToks that make fun of the video meetings and how terrible they are. Yeah. There is something valuable about seeing people face to face, right? I can't necessarily be in a room with you, but we can use technology to make sure we stay connected. It has made us learn more about grit and perseverance than I think anything else has in our careers. The truth is, for salespeople, especially when you're focusing on relational sales and the ability to drop into a business or swing by or see someone or take them to lunch, our agenda has been completely moved. And so we've been challenged to have real value and a real reason to get people in front of us. And it's caused us to sharpen our skill set. We need a reason for people to meet with us because they have plenty of things pulling at them right now, including the bottom line. The other piece to that is we get the chance to reinvent how you do business. And that's exciting. I mean, we'll look back on this 20 to 30 to 40 years when we're not so traumatized by the lockdowns and quarantines, and we will realize the pivot that was made in business during this season.
So well said. And I've so enjoyed this discussion and getting to know you and learning some of your advice and your wisdom. So before we go, and we really want to just honor women as it is, March, and we're really focusing on Women's Month. So tell me, what is your final parting words, your final advice for those that are participating today?
Oh, final parting words. So I will say, as women, I think sometimes we allow ourselves to fit inside a box that we think we're supposed to be in, or we make ourselves small to not cause commotion. And I will just empower any female out there. use your voice to vocalize your accomplishments and your success. And if we are mastering the art of selling, then we need to master the art of selling ourselves and our value, because you're worth it.
Oh, that was so well said. I feel like I need to do one of those power poses because I feel so empowered by everything you said today. I cannot thank you enough for sharing your time and your wisdom with us, Jennifer. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us today for Connecting Business. Be sure to check out all the episodes at business.windstream.com/connectingbusiness. And we want to hear from you. Love the episode? Have a topic or guest idea? Email us at connectingbusiness@windstream.com. We look forward to sharing more stories through Connecting Business. Until next time, stay connected.